In our headlines on this Wednesday, February 19th, here in South Korea, U.S. President Donald Trump suggests a 25% tariff on auto imports into the American market to be announced in early April, following the result of an ongoing review by his trade team on reciprocal tariffs. Meanwhile, over in Saudi Arabia, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, engaged in close to 5 hours of intense talks about a potential peace plan for Ukraine. And here on the local front, President Yoon's impeachment trial enters its final week with the 10th formal hearing to proceed as planned tomorrow, that is Thursday. Addressing members of the media in Florida on Tuesday, U.S. President Donald Trump floated the idea of a 25% tariff on all foreign-made cars and chips entering the American market. Our Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
In his first month back in the Oval Office, U.S. President Donald Trump has been focused on taxing imports coming into the United States, citing unfair trade. During a press conference at Mar-a-Lago in Florida on Tuesday, he was asked about the specifics of automobile tariffs that he had hinted at earlier.
Yeah, I probably will tell you that on April 2nd, but it'll be in the neighborhood of 25%.
Trump also said that it's likely that he will announce a 25% tariff on chips and pharmaceuticals coming into the United States. However, with pharmaceuticals, he hinted that while it may be initially 25% or higher, it will go up significantly over the course of a year. Due to the massive tariffs that Trump plans on imposing, the U.S. leader said that major car and chip companies have already approached his administration, hinting that new plants are now likely to be built in the United States.
I do want to say while I'm up here, I've been contacted by some of the biggest companies in the world, and because of what we're doing economically and through tariffs and taxes and incentives, they want to come back into the United States. And we'll be announcing various very large companies, the biggest actually, and they'll be coming back, having to do with chips and having to do also with cars and lots of other things. We're going to be.
Meanwhile, President Trump has commented on the North Korean troops who have fought alongside the Russian military in the Kursk region for the first time since taking office. According to Trump, many North Koreans have been killed fighting in the war. The comments also come as his administration is holding talks with Russian officials to discuss a plan to end the war in Ukraine. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, given the looming threat of tougher Trump tariffs, the government here has vowed a support framework to better assist Korean exporters. Our correspondent Lee Soo-jin has details.
The South Korean government on Tuesday announced plans to offer a broad range of support services to companies affected by U.S. President Trump's recent tariff threats and is also working to diversify its export markets. This comes amid growing concerns about the potential impact of tariffs on exports, especially given their critical role in driving Korea's economic growth.
Last year, exports supported our struggling economy. They grew by 8.1% annually to a record high, leading Korea to become the world's 6th largest exporter. However, policy shifts from the new U.S. administration have made this year's outlook more uncertain than ever.
The remarks were made during an export strategy meeting where the acting president announced that the government would provide export vouchers for small and medium-sized enterprises. With these vouchers, companies can receive consultations in various fields, including legal, taxation, marketing, and certifications. And 90% of the 240 billion won, or around $166 million budget for the vouchers will be allocated in the first half of the year. The government also announced that it will offer tax benefits to companies relocating to Korea due to shifts in the global trade environment, even before they have fully scaled down their overseas operations. As part of further efforts to provide financial relief, the government will provide short-term liquidity for companies hit by tariff threats by supplying around $254 billion in trade financing this year, a record high amount. The country's export market is also expected to become more diversified in the future, as the government is aiming to expand into countries such as Mexico, South Africa, Vietnam, and India by setting up 5 new export centers overseas. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
In Saudi Arabia back on Tuesday, talks between the top diplomats of the US and Russia on ending the latter's invasion of Ukraine lasted well over 4 hours. Our foreign affairs correspondent Peunji reports.
Top diplomats of the United States and Russia held talks in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday, marking their first formal meeting aimed at ending the Ukraine war since it began 3 years ago. Following the meeting that lasted around 4.5 hours, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters that he's convinced Russia is willing to engage in a serious process of ending the conflict, and said this was the first step of a long and difficult journey.
In order to bring an end to any conflict, there has to be concessions made by all sides.
Rubio's Russian counterpart described the conversation as useful, but said his country will not accept NATO troops in Ukraine as part of any peace deal.
We explained today that the presence of troops from NATO countries under a foreign flag, under the flag of the European Union, or under national flags, it does not change anything. This is, of course, unacceptable to us.
The two countries said they agreed to hold more talks and added they will appoint high-level teams to begin working on a path to ending the war as soon as possible. Following the talks, Rubio held phone calls with his counterparts from the UK, France, Germany, and Italy in an apparent move to reassure the European countries over concerns that they may have no place in the peace negotiations. Meanwhile, as Ukraine was not invited to Tuesday's peace talks, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said negotiations to end the war in Ukraine should not take place behind the backs of the parties involved.
You can talk about anything, but no decision can be made without Ukraine on how to end the war in Ukraine. We were not invited to this meeting, the US-Russia meeting in Saudi Arabia. It was a surprise for us, as well as for many.
In response, U.S. President Donald Trump dismissed Kyiv's concern about being left out and almost suggested that Ukraine was to blame for a war that began only after Russia's invasion.
But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
Trump also hinted that he may meet Russian President Vladimir Putin very soon. As he walked out of the press conference in Mar-a-Lago, he answered probably when asked if he still expected to meet Putin before the end of this month. Peunji, Arirang News.
In other news, the Korean Air Force Chief of Staff took part in the first test flight of the country's homegrown advanced KF-21 supersonic fighter jet known as 보람이 earlier today. General Lee Young-soo assessed the aircraft's operational capabilities while flying at an altitude of 4,500 meters over waters off the country's southern coast at a speed of over 1,000 kilometers per hour. Following the flight, he claimed 보람이 would stand shoulder to shoulder with world-class fighter jets. Now, South Korea began developing its own jet in 2015, and the first batch is scheduled to be deployed to frontline air bases starting next year. A Chinese travel agency is promoting tours to North Korea for the first time in 5 years. On its website, Beijing's Beijing-based travel agency is currently offering a 3-night, 4-day trip to the Rason Special Economic Zone starting next Monday. According to the agency, special approval has been secured from North Korea for the first Chinese private group tours in 5 years. Now, back in February last year, a group of Russian tourists became the first foreign team of travelers to visit North Korea since the global pandemic. President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial appears to be coming to a close with the 10th hearing set to take place tomorrow, that is Thursday, despite an early request for rescheduling by the president's defense team. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young has a recap of Tuesday's session and more.
The Constitutional Court rejected President Yoon Suk-yeol's request to rearrange one impeachment hearing, which coincides with the start of his criminal trial proceedings this week. On Tuesday, during the president's 9th trial hearing, Acting Chief Justice Moon Young-bae said the 10th session on Thursday will go ahead as planned. dismissing a request by Yoon's team to hold the session next week, as the Seoul Central District Court will begin the president's pre-trial hearings for his criminal case on Thursday morning.
While there's criticism that the overlapping date weakens Yoon's right to legal self-defense, the Constitutional Court has decided to push through with Thursday's hearing at 3 p.m, an hour later than initially planned, stating that Yoon's criminal trial begins at 10 a.m.
During Tuesday's hearing, legal representatives of the National Assembly and President Yoon further made their case for and against impeachment. The Assembly's panel called for Yoon's swift removal from office, saying the declaration of martial law and related decrees were illegal as they did not go through cabinet procedures, and accused them of dictatorial actions.
This is a direct attack on the principles of the rule of law and the separation of powers. From the perspective of constitutional protection, it is an absolutely unacceptable act.
Yoon's side continued to argue that declaring martial law was a constitutional right of the president and that the opposition-led parliament had forced his hand.
The opposition paralysed the judiciary, legislature and administration with its countless impeachments, interference with the Constitutional Court's composition, reckless budget cuts, legislative manoeuvres to shield its leader Lee Jae-myung, and obstruction of government policy bills. In a short amount of time, the president initiated a martial law that was constitutional, legal and peaceful as a plea to the people.
They further raised suspicions of false ballot papers and potential Chinese interference, causing electoral irregularities as a pretext for declaring martial law. Yoon's lawyers say they will review on Wednesday whether there's further evidence and witnesses to present. The 10th hearing on Thursday will feature 3 witness examinations, including with Prime Minister Han Duck-soo. Former intelligence official Hong Jang-won will return to the court for further questioning, this time by Yoon's legal team. National Police Agency Chief Cho Ji-ho will be forced to attend after 2 absences due to illness. Experts say the court is likely to add 1 more hearing to hear the closing arguments and the president's final statement. Yoon on Tuesday decided to return to the Seoul Detention Center and sit out the 9th hearing. If the trial concludes next week, a ruling will be made in the first half of March. In past presidential impeachment trials, a verdict was reached within 2 weeks. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Staying at the Constitutional Court, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo attended the first hearing of his impeachment trial today. The hearing comes nearly 2 months after the opposition-led parliament voted to impeach him from his post as acting president following his reluctance to approve new Constitutional Court justices. Han, for his part, has claimed his decision is consistent with the country's constitutional tradition that calls for bipartisan accord on judicial nominations. Han has also rejected allegations of having played a part in President Yoon Suk-yeol's brief imposition of martial law. Meanwhile, the Parliament's impeachment panel co-chair Chun Chung-lee insists Han disrupted the nation by failing to approve the National Assembly's judicial nominations. And at the Parliament today, lawmakers across the aisle continue to stand poles apart over details of a supplementary budget ahead of a crucial meeting tomorrow. Correspondent Issue covers the contention.
On Wednesday, the day before the much-anticipated first meeting of the joint consultative body between the government and bipartisan leaders at the National Assembly, the main opposition Democratic Party continued to urge prompt processing of the supplementary budget. Party Chairman Lee Jae-myung, who has insisted on a nationwide spending voucher for all citizens to revive the economy, even hinted that he was willing to forego such an objective if it leads to the approval of the budget.
If the consumption voucher is absolutely impossible and they just really can't do it, why not spend money on job creation and support for business startups? I hope we can discuss this together at the joint talks on state affairs.
The DP has proposed an additional budget of 35 trillion Korean won, or roughly $24.3 billion US. While the ruling People Power Party agrees with the need for an additional financing to boost the economy, it argues the DP must first restore the money it cut in the first place. The PPP insists on what it calls a tweezers budget that would selectively support the most crucial areas in need. This way, the party says they can assure fiscal soundness.
The PPP's rule for the supplementary budget is to spend on the most urgent areas, somewhat like picking them out with a pair of tweezers. Our first priorities are measures for the self-employed and small business owners who are directly affected by the stagnant economy.
Kwon said the ruling party is open to negotiations as long as the main opposition apologizes first on cutting, quote, key budgets for the next generation. Meanwhile, the joint talks between the government and the assembly, slated for Thursday, were originally scheduled for earlier this month, but were postponed due to disagreements on the specifics of the agenda. At the upcoming meeting, Acting President Choi Sang-mok, National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik, and the leaders from the rival parties are expected to discuss not only the budget, but other key pending issues, such as measures to support the domestic semiconductor industry and improve the national pension system. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
And the government has announced a host of measures to bolster regional construction by expanding related development projects and raising the efficiency of land use. Accordingly, at an economic policy meeting earlier today, Acting President Choi Sang-mok shared intentions of the state-owned Korea Land and Housing Corporation to buy some 3,000 unsold regional apartments. He also announced a project worth 4.3 trillion Korean won to take underground railway tracks in Busan, Daejeon, and Ansan. Korea's ramyeon has been garnering quite a big following on the global stage, with a growing number of travelers to the country starting their travel agenda here with a trip to popular ramyeon hotspots. Our Ian takes a look.
Visitors from around the world have flocked to this unique spot, a 24-hour self-service ramyeon or South Korean instant noodles shop located in the heart of Seoul, Jongno-gu district. This ramyeon shop offers foreign visitors over 60 varieties of instant noodles to enjoy anytime, with options for all tastes, including mild, spicy, vegan, and halal.
Cooking methods and safety guidelines are available in multiple languages, ensuring easy access for everyone. The preparation methods vary for different types of ramyeon, with special halal-only options also provided.
We often see tourists coming straight from the airport. Since unmanned stores are not common in many countries, people are usually surprised by our setup. Many also ask if the payment system works properly.
Another unique ramen spot is Noguri's Ramen Shop, which opened in January and serves ramen made by Nongshim, one of South Korea's leading food companies. A second store opened at the Hyundai outlet Dongdaemun, located in central Seoul, following the success of the first store, which sold an average of 12,000 bowls per month between September and November last year.
I came here because I had this ramyeon in Japan before. The soup was smooth and very delicious.
It was attractive that I could choose and eat ramyeon freely, and the ramyeon I ate was also very delicious.
The ramen store's owner says that some milder flavored products, which don't sell well in South Korea, are popular among Japanese and American customers.
We've tailored our selection to include the most popular products. Additionally, we have Muslim customers who often seek vegan options, so we've made sure to include those as well.
According to the Korean Food Ministry, ramen exports reached a record of over $1 billion, or around 1.5 trillion Korean won, by October 2024, marking a 30% increase from 2023.
Before heading back to Japan today, I stopped by because it looked interesting. Seeing this ramyeon, which isn't available in Japan, made me wish I could have it there too.
As Korean ramen gains popularity, visiting self-service ramen shops to cook and enjoy instant noodles on the spot has become a must-do activity for foreign visitors to Korea. Iun-hee, Arirang News.
And up next, we share with you an uplifting tale of triumph over genetic disorders thanks to tailored medical attention to allow for a relatively normal life like going to college. Our Kim Jung-sil reports.
A ceremony honored young individuals with muscular dystrophy who continue to pursue education. This rare type of disease can affect movement, speech, and even breathing. However, with personalized care at Yonsei Gangnam Severance Hospital's Pulmonary Rehab Center, they've overcome numerous challenges.
한국의 국민들을 축하하는 이 귀한 자리에 입학생 대표로서 축사할 수 있는 기회를 허락해 주셔서 진심으로 감사드립니다.
20-year-old Ji-sung has been a patient at this hospital since he was a child. Still undergoing treatment, Ji-sung will start university as a freshman next month.
In the past, my breathing difficulties made daily life very uncomfortable. But now, I'm able to deliver a speech like this and take part in events and school activities, which is truly wonderful.
The perseverance of these students has been made possible by the medical support of experts like Professor Kang Sung-woong, a leader in this field.
Watching these students overcome their struggles makes me realize what I'm going through is not a big deal. While I help my patients, I've received a lot of help myself.
Professor Kang also shared his approach to treating his patients.
Just like how a weak leg requires a cane for support, these patients need specialized breathing support. My goal is to help them choose the right breathing method so they can continue their social activities and lead fulfilling lives.
These students' achievements prove that with the right care and determination, anything is possible.
He has grown up healthily and has worked harder on his studies than we ever expected. We are proud and very grateful.
The resilience of these students paves the way for a bright future and serves as an inspiration to never give up. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Qatar's Emir have elevated bilateral relations to a strategic partnership. During Qatar Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani's two-day official visit to New Delhi, both leaders signed an agreement establishing the partnership, reflecting their commitment to deepening cooperation across various sectors. While the current trade volume between the two nations stands at approximately $14 billion, the new partnership aims to increase the figure to $28 billion by 2030. Discussions also included the potential signing of a free trade agreement to facilitate more active economic exchanges. Also, both countries signed a revised double taxation avoidance agreement aimed at fostering a more conducive environment for business and investment. Poland's President Andrzej Duda announced Tuesday that the United States had assured Poland that there would be no reduction in American troop presence in Eastern Europe. Duda said U.S. officials, including Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg, confirmed the U.S. commitment to maintaining its current military presence in Eastern Europe. Currently, approximately 10,000 U.S. troops are stationed in Poland, which is an increase following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. The U.S. established its first permanent military base in Poland in 2023. The assurance aligns with Poland's ongoing efforts to bolster its defense capabilities and underscores the strategic partnership between the two countries. It comes against the backdrop of heightened security concerns in Eastern Europe regarding potential threats from Russia. Chinese tech giant Huawei unveiled on Tuesday its trifold smartphone outside China. The Mate XT Ultimate design is the first phone in the world to feature a dual hinge system, where the flexible OLED display can expand from a compact 6.4 inches to a tablet-like 10.2 inches when fully unfolded. It operates on Huawei's proprietary software instead of Google services. The Mate XT's starting price point is approximately $3,660 and is currently listed for sale in several countries, including Malaysia and Saudi Arabia. Pre-orders have reportedly surpassed 6.5 million units. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
The last cold wave of this winter is getting more severe day by day. The air feels colder than yesterday across the country. In Pyeongchang in Gangwon-do province, the temperature dropped to nearly minus 20 degrees Celsius today. The cold wave warnings and advisories have been further expanded around the inland areas of central parts of the country. In addition, there are dry weather warnings in place for East Coast areas, and dry weather advisories have also been issued in Seoul and other inland areas. With strong winds blowing, please take care not to cause any fires in these areas. Tomorrow morning will start cold nationwide. Seoul and Gyeongju will start off at -7 degrees and Gwangju at -4 degrees. Daytime temperatures will move up to 1 degree in Seoul and 6 degrees in Busan. This cold spell is expected to finally end early next week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Thank you for watching.